The tragic plane crash near Washington, D.C., involving a military Black Hawk helicopter and a commercial jet, has revealed several key points and complexities. 1. What really happened?
Thank you for joining us. I'm Jennifer Homendy, and I'm chair of the National Transportation Safety Board. With me today is Ralph Hicks, who is a senior air safety investigator with the NTSB, and he will serve as our investigator in charge of this investigation. We call that the IIC. If you're not familiar with the National Transportation Safety Board and our mission, we are an independent federal agency that's charged by Congress with investigating every civil aviation accident in the United States and significant events in all other modes of transportation.
Hi, Eric Weiss with NTSB Media Relations. Briefing you tonight will be board member Todd Inman, I-N-M-A-N, as well as investigator in charge Bryce Banning, B-R-I-C-E, Banning, B-A-N-N-I-N-G. Thank you.
Investigator in charge.
Investigator in charge.
Thank you. Let me just start with, whenever we began our first press conference, I guess 2 or 3 days ago, we gave the condolences to the families of the 67 victims in this accident. And tonight, we also need to give the condolences to yet another set of individuals due to the Philadelphia crash. Our hearts go out to all of them. Nobody should suffer this much tragedy, no matter what time frame in between it. But know this, we will find out what happened in both of those accidents. We'll make recommendations, and we will attempt to never have to deal with those type of accidents again. I want to give you just a couple of facts right off the bat, just in case there's any questions. Last year, the NTSB investigated across all modes 1,288 different events. Last year, we had multiple accidents with 6 or more fatalities. Across all of our modes, which are primarily aviation, we dealt with 343 fatalities. We currently have open 1,100 recommendations, and in aviation, there are 283 that are still pending.
Both recorders are solid-state memory digital recorders.
The crash occurred near a very busy area with high traffic from both civilian and military aircraft. Both the helicopter and the plane were in close proximity, likely leading to a fatal collision. 2. The helicopter was flying above its permitted altitude of at least 200 feet, reaching about 400 feet. Air traffic control staffing was insufficient, with only one controller managing both helicopters and planes, potentially contributing to miscommunication or oversight. The ongoing investigation aims to retrieve the black boxes, and as of this recording, I believe that the black boxes have already been retrieved for cockpit voice recordings, which could shed light on what led to the collision. 3. The victims include at least 38 people from various backgrounds, including figure skaters, military personnel, crew members, a pilot, and other notable individuals. The tragedy underscores the human cost of such accidents and highlights the need for robust support systems for individual and for affected families, businesses, and community organizations. 4. Retrieving black boxes is a critical step in understanding what happened. The potential changes in air safety policies may follow, especially around busy areas like Washington, D.C., with considerations for new protocols or training programs. 5. The president has suggested that prior administration standards might have contributed to the accident.
Highest standards for air traffic controllers and other important jobs throughout the country. So it was very interesting. About a week ago, almost upon entering office, I signed something last week that was an executive order, very powerful, on restoring the highest standards of air traffic controllers and others, by the way. Then my administration will set the highest possible bar for aviation safety. We have to have our smartest people. It doesn't matter what they look like, how they speak, who they are. It matters intellect, talent, the word talent. You have to be talented, naturally talented geniuses. You can't have regular people doing that job. They won't be able to do it. But we'll restore faith in American air travel. I'll have more to say about that. I do want to point out that various articles that appeared prior to my entering office, and here's one. The FAA's diversity push includes focus on hiring people with severe intellectual and psychiatric disabilities. That is amazing. And then it says FAA says people with severe disabilities are most underrepresented segment of the workforce, and they want them in, and they want them, they can be air traffic controllers. I don't think so. This was in January 14th, so that was a week before I entered office. They put a big push to put diversity into the FAA's program. Then another article, the Federal Aviation Administration, this was before I got to office, recently, second term. The FAA is actively recruiting workers who suffer severe intellectual disabilities, psychiatric problems, and other mental and physical conditions under a diversity and inclusion hiring initiative spelled out on the agency's website. Can you imagine? These are people that are, I mean, actually, their lives are shortened because of the stress that they have. Brilliant people have to be in those positions, and their lives are actually shortened, very substantially shortened, because of the stress of a controller of airplanes pouring into our country, pouring into a little spot, a little dot on the map, a little runway. The initiative is part of the FAA's diversity and inclusion hiring plan. Think of that. The initiative is part of the FAA's diversity and inclusion hiring plan.
Though this remains speculative until the full investigation is completed. And even then, we're not quite sure if we're going to obtain the full account of events. 6. The incident highlights the importance of adherence to proper procedures and effective communication in high-stress aviation environments. It serves as a reminder of how small mistakes or oversights can have a significant and severe consequence. In summary, the crash near Washington, D.C. is a complex event with implications for future safety protocols, air traffic management, and the human impact we should also consider for everyone affected. So let's address the legal considerations surrounding this unfortunate and tragic plane crash out of Washington, D.C. The first consideration are the aviation safety regulations. Federal aviation regulations, or FARs, govern air traffic control procedures, aircraft maintenance, pilot training, and operational management. The FARs outline protocols for air traffic control and emergencies. In this case, we might see a change in how the FARs govern or control military and civilian aircraft communications. The second consideration involves the National Transportation Safety Board. and how it investigates. The NTSB conducts investigations to determine the causes of aviation accidents, often leading to safety recommendations. The NTSB has the authority to compel information and testimony from any involved parties. The NTSB's authority to compel information is going to be important in identifying any lapses in communication or maintenance. I would assume that the NTSB will make recommendations to improve safety. The third consideration are contractual obligations. There are agreements between the military and the private sector. So it's very likely that there might be contracts between the military and the commercial operators which detail the flight paths and the communication systems. If these agreements were inadequate or were not followed, it could be a factor in the crash. The fourth legal consideration is civil liability or tort law. The families of the victims may sue for negligence if it's proven that human error or inadequate safety measures contributed to the crash. This involves establishing evidence for negligence through available data and witness testimony, which shouldn't be hard to obtain given the number of recordings that have come out from various sources, like Ring doorbell cameras, phones, etc., as well as the black box. Lawsuits may be filed by victims' families seeking compensation for damages. And the legal recourse available under tort law wouldn't just stop with negligence, it could also go into strict liability because aviation is a high risk activity. This could also involve potential products liability if mechanical issues were found. The fifth legal consideration would be administrative law and oversight. Federal agencies like the Department of Defense and FAA oversee operations. Failures in oversight could lead to administrative actions or policy changes to prevent future incidents. Administrative law considerations might involve reviewing how federal agencies oversee airspace or communication systems. Administrative law may also come into play where there were any lapses in oversight by federal agencies like the Department of Defense or the Federal Aviation Administration, again, the FAA. Administrative investigations can lead to changes in policies or procedures to prevent future incidents. The federal agencies involved are the Department of Defense, the Federal Aviation Administration, or the FAA, and the guidelines for shared airspace management and communication systems. The sixth legal consideration would be criminal. What potential criminal charges might be filed and against whom? Potential criminal negligence comes to mind because of the violations of safety regulations or orders could lead to criminal charges. There might be penalties and fines associated with any such violations. If there's evidence of gross negligence bordering on criminal negligence, these criminal charges might lead to penalties like fines or even imprisonment, depending on who's involved. Criminal charges could also stem from violations of safety regulations or orders. The FAA has enforcement powers to bring legal actions against those who violate regulations. The seventh legal consideration are international aviation laws. International standards govern aircraft certification and operation. There are potential implications under international law, although American or US law may take precedence due to the incident location. Washington, D.C. is the United States capital and is a hub of commerce on the eastern seaboard. My opinion is speculative until the results come out and the rules for aviation are updated. But I think there is much more to the story than what we have been provided by these various news sources. We also need to account for Pennsylvania. This channel is not about endorsing one political party or the other in the United States. But when things go wrong, people want to blame things like DEI, race, gender, mental disability, and social politics and drama, instead of focusing on the awful tragedy of around 100 people who died. The fear of flying gets worse for all of us when you think about the logistical nightmare of one person manning both private industry planes and military operations at the same time. I really thought we had two separate spheres for flying, but now this tragedy has highlighted the opposite. Be safe in your travels, and if you like these legal stories in your pocket, please like and subscribe.